Alrighty. Good afternoon, everybody. Good day. So glad that you can join us and welcome to the Rangers Show. It's me, Phill. Steffny. Russell is on a safari. Lucky fellow. Going to spend the next 2.5 weeks in Botswana. Hope he has a great trip. But that's okay. We're going to see some amazing things on the cameras. I'm sure lots of you have been watching the cameras. There's been some really great stuff happening lately. Lovely winter time in this part of South Africa. It's often the best time to try and see wildlife. The cameras have certainly been quite active. There's been lots of lion activity, some leopard activity. We've got some interesting stories coming out of especially lion dynamics. We're trying to do essentially a new concept, and we're trying to learn more about the individual animals, the separate prides, the dynamics that have happened in the immediate areas. Not always the easiest thing to find out. But we have a new member of our team, Kirsten Henry. She's been very busy working out all the dynamics behind the scenes. So between us all, let's see what stories we can put together. I've got some great highlights of some of the animals that have come to the waterholes this weekend, and we'll discuss some of the dynamics with regards to leopard, lion in particular, and leopards. And of course, as usual, we'll keep looking at the live cameras right now at the Olifants. We've got a very relaxed troop of baboons having a late afternoon feed, as they often do, underneath the sycamore fig trees. I think there's some waterbuck in the background there. I'm quite excited to be back on the afternoon shows. I've been doing a great show with kids. I don't know if any of you tuned in, or maybe some of your kids did. Over the last 6 weeks, we did a junior ranger program, which was really quite interesting. Lots of questions coming in from the kids. And as usual, I'd like to try and encourage you guys to send any questions in. There's always wonderful lessons to be learned. How are you, Suki? Nice to see you again. Nice to have you on the show. Thanks for joining. You've been missed as well. I'm very glad to be back. So like I say, I think I've been watching the cameras and seeing some things over the last little while. The buffalo kill. There was a leopard kill with our new Nomad cam, which I've also just been learning about. I don't know, those of you that have been watching some of the highlights on that Nomad cam, I'm not sure whether everyone's got the idea. I don't know if Russell's discussed it, but it's a really cool idea that camera is actually set up on a vehicle, and it can be moved anywhere throughout the Bululi Reserve. Ideally, wherever anyone finds a sighting that's worthwhile sticking around for a highlight sighting. It's also a really functional tool from an anti-poaching point of view. The black mambas are utilizing that vehicle and that cam to a great extent. One of the things you might have noticed if you've been watching the night vision, that's one of our new cameras, and we're hoping to upgrade all of our cameras at some point soon. But one of the biggest or the newest benefits is it has a really powerful night vision ability up to 500 meters of infrared. So as you can imagine, that's a pretty functional tool to have, either just for viewing wildlife, but also keeping an eye out there from an anti-poaching perspective. So that's really cool to have on board. I hope you guys are enjoying that new facility. How are you, Alison? Nice to be back. Nice to have you on the show. It's like an impala across the way there. So I was talking about some of the highlights and some of the new concepts that we're coming up with to get as much out of these cameras as we possibly can. I'd like to go to one of the highlights. There was a beautiful male lion seen at Taupan over the weekend. I'm sure Max will get it up there for us. And while we're waiting to get them from Taupan, okay, these are different lines. It's okay. We'll stay here. These were Tsemba. This was another bit of interaction. That lovely Tsemba pride. We're still finding out what the guys call them down there, what the researchers might call them. And those of you may or may not agree with the concept of naming animals, but from a researching point of view and from our point of view of trying to work out different individuals, I think it's quite valuable. Some like to keep things natural. Some of the animals nobody actually knows, which is great. So there's a bit of a mixture of both. But these lions that we see here at Tsemba, we've called them the Tsemba pride. I'm pretty sure it's still the same ones that we keep seeing on a regular basis. But here we see them, how they're just having a relaxed afternoon, minding their own business, having a drink, big female sneaking off when they get rudely interrupted and chased off by an elephant. There's the Ellie in the back there who somehow decides today's the day he's going to put his foot down. And we had long discussions with the kids and the rangers show as to who's the real king of the jungle. Most people still agreed that lion is the top of the log. But when you see this footage, I'm not so sure. In the last minute, the lions, these are the youngsters that we keep watching. That one's already starting to move away. We can't see the elephant yet. There's a bit of audio coming up. There we go. It doesn't look to me like those lions are being anything near kingly. That was one of the highlights, and it is quite interesting, that question as to who actually rules the roost. And I came up with the, I guess, diplomatic answer is no one's really the absolute top of the log. They all have their own structures and their own wars, I guess. As far as predators are concerned, I would definitely put lion at the top of the log. But if one had to take elephants, as we saw there, and I've often seen it where elephants have chased lions out the way, even big male lions, I think they definitely seem to be on the top for me, but certainly in their own world. And the kids seem to be happy with that answer. So I'm trying to find, yes, that's the one, Max, of that male lion. It's a really interesting story going on at Tau with regards to lions. So this weekend, one male lion was seen at Tau, and he was originally part of a coalition of two that came from Addo National Park, which is in the Eastern Cape. And they had a big battle. There were two local big male lions, one by the name of Monomoholo, which is another story, but we'll get to that. And he had a coalition buddy from Kwandwe, and they called that lion Kwandwe. And they had a big battle, although it was the two Addo male lions. So this one and another one, his buddy, which since then has actually been killed in a territorial battle. Max, I wonder if we can pause this video right here, because there's quite a story. It's not only a story about these lions, but it does give us really good insight on the dynamics. But so there was a battle in March between the Kwandwe male and the two Addo boys, as they were known. This is one of the Addo boys. It does get a little tricky, so just like I need to try and stay with my mind's eye. Bear with me a little. But they had a battle. The Kwandwe male couldn't handle the pressure of 2 against 1, and he did the smart thing, which is what lions often do. If they can get away from physical battle, they will. He managed to get away, and he formed a temporary coalition with the biggest, one of the older male lions, a very well-known male lion called Monomoholo, which actually means old man's son. Love it when local names get given to either animals or people. It's quite common. I love the explanations and the translation. Anyhow, these two then ganged up together against the adder males in a later fight, essentially a retaliation, if you like. And at this point, that's pretty normal. Let's discuss the fact that male lions will fight for territories as hard as they need to. So initially, things like roaring and scent marking try and calm down the physical or the potential for physical combat. They rather communicate first, which is what roaring is, either to find a pride or to tell others to back off, that this territory is taken. If the competition gets too stiff between two rivals, either 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 or more, then that roaring becomes more intense, the scent marking becomes more intense, and the whole situation starts to boil over, which is what happened or is actually still happening. So it's something to worthwhile keep following. But basically, the Monoholo male and the Kwandwe male came back to fight the Addo boys, which were relatively new and about 2 years younger, and they killed one of them. So now this fellow that we're watching right here and that came to the cameras this weekend, someone to look out for, he's still alive and looks in great condition, but he's on his own. Okay. This weekend, they found the body of Monomoholo, the bigger, older male that was with the Kwandwe male. So now the Kwandwe male is evidently a single male lion, and so is this Addo boy. So it's going to be quite interesting to see whether these two team up as coalition buddies to take on any other rivals, or do they stay enemies and settle on separate territories? So, like I say, it's quite fascinating. Now, the concept of the dead old male lion, Monomoholo, they did find him with huge wounds. So it was clear that there was another battle. They estimate him to have been between 12 and 13 years of age, which is quite interesting because as far as the textbook is concerned, that's a normal lifespan of a male lion. So he evidently had a huge battle and came to the end of his reign in that battle. But what's quite interesting is that he didn't have any external wounds, anything visible that would show that he was injured. And I've had that once before at a place called Pinda, where there was a big battle one night and we found one male was dead, but we couldn't see what was wrong with it. And we did an autopsy. And when we had a closer look at the hindquarters, the second half of this male's body, the whole spine, the flanks, the muscle down his buttocks was completely ripped apart and congealed. And essentially the blood of that animal couldn't move through and he died of a heart attack. So it's quite interesting that this was a similar scenario in our research and in the articles we've read and managed to find out, is that when a lion bites another lion, its teeth are not sharp enough necessarily to puncture or certainly not every time, that puncture the skin, but they pull and shake, and that causes the extreme damage. It's also one of the reasons why lions have manes. The mane is there to protect their throats and their backs in battle. It's also there to try and show off to the females visibly, but it is also a deterrent against other enemies. So at this point, I'm really quite interested to see if these two now that are left over form a coalition. So it's something to look out for. I did just think that that was something interesting. So this is one of the Addo boys, and it seems that the Kwandwe male is still around somewhere, and we'll see whether we can pinpoint him as an individual. Okay, so that was the lion story that happened this weekend. And again, it's something that we'll keep following, see what comes of it, but it is quite nice to know a little bit more about the individuals that we get to see on the cams. Indeed, someone writes, just like human politics, lion politics. Well, there's no doubt that there are some similarities, especially in this day and age, but we won't open that can of worms. So we've come across to Nkorapan. We're back on live now. We've got a wonderful herd of wildebeest slowly grazing their way past the waterhole. I must say it's always such a different picture to see the environments in the different seasons. I can still see a fair amount of green on the right-hand side there. Lots of food, and we did think that this would be a nice lush winter. You know, the rains we had in summer were quite incredible. But there was another great sighting this weekend here at Nkorapan, this time of a leopard. Let's see if Maxie can line us up there and have a look at this beautiful young male leopard in this case. There it is. So now we've also got some information. So this young animal is a young male, roughly 21 months old or so. And they've called him Tsemba. Oh, Tsembia. Always tricky to pronounce these words for the first times, but we'll get there. Means trust. So trust is about 2 years of age. And he had a sibling, which is not unusual. Leopards typically give birth to up to 2, sometimes 3, but it's quite normal to see them with 2. But it seems the one didn't make it through. We're not sure exactly at what age or what happened, but this young male seems to be doing really well, is in great condition. Now, if it's 21 months old, it's just short of adulthood. It's not enjoying the muddy edges of the water there, typical cat. It's certainly giving us a beautiful view. So they sexually mature. They're essentially adults at 2 years of age. So he's almost there, and I would say that he's got a very good chance of reaching maturity and becoming a wonderful male to keep watching out for. He'll still have 2, maybe 3 years of a pretty scary lifestyle, if you like. You'll have a smaller territory. You'll have to dodge the dominant males. He's got a lot to learn with regards to dealing with prides of lions. We've often seen lots of hyenas here in Nkorapan, so it's not easy sailing for him. So it'll be interesting to keep watching to see whether he makes it into that big prime of around up to 6 years of age, nice big males with big dewlaps, which we have seen here at Nkora. But it's really nice to have an understanding of the individuals. You need to take a snapshot of his spot patterns, because that's how you tell each one apart. It's not that easy. It seems like he got himself really quite wet, as all he needed to do was have a drink. It's so wonderful just watching them stroll by. But that's definitely a young leopard to watch out for. The path of the youngster. Maybe we see its mother at some point. But there's always dynamics. There's always dynamics, and there's always politics. And actually, I was thinking about this morning, the concept of life is actually one to survive. And here in nature, we see it pretty much in its rawest form, and we put it together as politics and dynamics. But all that leopard will be trying to do is to survive to adulthood in order to breed, in order to get the strongest genes pool through to the next generation to do the same thing. Not that complicated, really. And out in nature, it seems to be quite accepted to go about things in a raw, wild way. Just have a quick look around and see if there's anything else that's been coming down to the waterhole. That's where the leopard had a drink earlier on the weekend. It's also good to know that when young leopards move away from their mothers, oh, there's some warthogs, good food for the leopard. They don't move away necessarily too far to start with, especially the females. The females will actually stick around and form a smaller territory within the mother's territory. The males will have a different problem. There's more competition between the young males and the dominant males. But I think for the next little while, the next maybe month or two, it's quite likely that this youngster spends more time coming past the waterhole. Definitely worthwhile looking out for. So we also had an interesting sighting, a visit from an antelope, a rarer antelope, this time at Kwapan. There's a wonderful trio of reedbuck, common reedbuck, not something we see that often. They're quite shy. There's a fair amount of them. It's just that they're quite shy. They often come down for drinks at night. And they love to really conceal themselves and lie dead still in long grass. But beautiful antelope, quite a plain brown, beautiful, shiny, shaggy coat. There's wonderful black eyes and a shiny black nose, as well as that scent gland just behind their eyes. You see there's an extra black patch at the back there, and they'll use that to mark on the edge of trees. Oh, you see how shy they are, very skittish. But a wonderful sighting, something not that common, something we don't always see on the cameras. They look like they're actually coming down for a nibble rather than a drink. Joining the impala. And these antelope have no problem with each other. No competition there. A young impala ram. Okay, so those were some of the highlights Over the weekend, there were also some porcupines, lots of things going on. I'm not sure if anyone else has seen some highlights. Maybe you can share with us what the most interesting sighting was over the weekend if you were watching. Interesting to see how these reedbuck are actually kneeling down like warthogs for a drink. I've actually never seen that before. That's one thing I really love about these cameras. There's animal behavior that you just don't read about. It's not something you see every day. Fascinating to see that one kneeling down for a drink. It's just the one knee. Huh. Unique style. Good on him. Okay, let's go across to some of the live cameras again. Let's see. There's some spurfowl, some Swanson spurfowl having a drink. And again, another one of the classic benefits of these cameras. We really just don't disturb them. We are essentially the fly on the wall. Having a wonderful afternoon drink. Beautiful afternoon sunlight as well. Some of our cameras have been down, or up and down, should we say. Let's just see if there's anything going on. Maybe we go across to that Nomad cam just for a second. I think there was a question with regards to how the camera works, how in terms of power. And Paul and I were there when the car was getting set up, and at the back of the vehicle there's a huge rack of solar panels, a wonderful modern source of constant energy, especially out here. Now, there was a leopard kill, those of you that were wondering why it's parked facing down this path here. But there was a leopard kill in this area. And what will happen in the next couple of days, it'll be moved into a spot where there's maybe something else that's quite particular. So for now, it's not really pointing at anything specifically, although I did see some of the snapshots that were taken of the beautiful, I think it was a sunrise, wonderful shots. There was some giraffe that walked by. It's quite fascinating to see, but it's also pointing across a road. So that's also quite interesting to see if anything, you know, animals do like to walk on the roads, lions, leopards, anything moving from A to B, it's the path of least resistance. You never know. It's a bit of a lucky draw, but as soon as there's something of interest, if the lions make another kill or maybe leopards make a kill, the vehicle will hopefully be moved across there and we'll get a good view of what's happening. Max had us on the olifants cam, 3 warthogs. Maybe we'll finish off there for today. And we'll keep watching. You never know what else comes along here. And as we get better at understanding the prides, there was also a question about prides of lions and how many lions there are in the Bululi area. As far as I know at the moment, there's at least 5 prides of lions. The Bululi area is quite big and it is open to other concessions that are open into the Kruger National Park. So especially the males come and go quite regularly, quite tricky to keep a tab on that. But there are some wonderful lion sightings, big prides that come along here at the Olifants River, also worthwhile watching. Tell you what, that warthog would be out of there in a shot if they came across right now. Okay, folks, so we've come to the end of today's show again. And keep watching those cameras at Nkora and Tau. You never know if those lines come back, and let's see if we can get a better grip on all the dynamics and the politics going on the predator level. Hope you have a wonderful day further, folks, and I look forward to catching up with you on Thursday and see what happens between now and then. Nice to be with you all. Have a great day further, and we'll catch up with you on Thursday.